A Plague Tale Innocence is one of the most immersive games I've ever played, and with the recent release of the sequel, A Plague Tale Requiem, I thought this would be the perfect time to go back to what became one of my favorite games during the pandemic. As the name might suggest, A Plague Tale is a tale set during the Black Plague of 14th century France. That's some Eminem wordplay shit right there. You play as Amicia de Rune, and the story begins with you, your dog, and your father hanging out in the woods together, which already caters to the fantasies of fatherless children right out the bat. Yeah, you just chill around, target practicing for a while, and what? What is happening?
My dog. Who did this?
Holy shit, what the fuck? You return home and tell everyone about what happened, including Amicia's mother. This is when you meet Amicia's younger brother and the other main character of the game, Hugo. While you two are catching up, the English Inquisition invade and send Amicia's father to the Shadow Realm. This is where the first stealth section of the game begins, as you have to find a way out of the place. Damn, women really were built different back then. The Inquisition's conversations tell you that they're after Hugo because of a disease in his blood called the macula. Soon you catch up with Amicia's mother again, but while trying to make your way out, she remains behind to give you an opportunity to escape. Then you're forced to run as the ground shake thing happens again, and the Inquisition soldiers start dying all around you. Though not as jaw-dropping as A Plague Tale Requiem, visually the game is still stunning. The first time I played it, I didn't even realize that this was an indie game. You visit a lot of different locations across the chapters, which lends really well to the visual variety. This game has somewhat of a unique look, which works in the more upbeat moments as well as in the gritty ones. The textures are sharp, the lighting is beautiful, the density of detail is epic, and the performance on PC is also nice. But what's even nicer are the people who subscribe to this channel. Let's talk about the gameplay now. The surface level gameplay is your run-of-the-mill stealth stuff, where you distract enemies in various ways to move around. Most of the times the AI is fine, but sometimes it is just video game stupid. Bro, how the f did you not realize where that came from? Because of his smaller size, Hugo can also help you in navigating the places by reaching spots that Amicia can't. But hold up,
wait a minute, something ain't right.
Remember how I said A Plague Tale is a tale set during the Black Plague of 14th century France? Well,
No. Wait, tonight.
Mama, no!
Tonight.
the rats are the real villain of the game and add a sort of horror element to it, but these little monsters are afraid of the light, so using this factor, the game has a lot of environmental puzzle solving which you need to do in order to progress. These are helped tremendously by the fact that they do some amount of storytelling. You also get to see these characters grow on each other while they solve these puzzles together. The combat is also like a puzzle which evolves over time. In the beginning it's just Amicia's sling and some rocks, but then as you progress, you start getting more tools like Ignifer which allow you to light lamps, close takedowns, smoke, bait to attract rats. You can collect materials in the environments to upgrade your gear as well. Only a few upgrades here feel useless, so overall the progression system is nice and has just the right amount of depth for a game like this. The various enemy types require different ways to kill. For example, enemies who wear helmets can only be defeated by either doing a close range takedown or by first getting them to remove their helmet using the acid and then hitting them. This also makes the head-on combat approach a bit more tense, as you constantly have to switch between your equipment. The real fun happens when human enemies and rats are in the same place. Here the game just becomes infinitely more fun to play as an entire new set of possibilities is revealed. You are actively pushed into being creative with how you take down enemies, and some of the ways you can do that here are comically gruesome, man. But exploiting the rats also comes at a cost a lot of the times, because if you mess up once, you're basically dead if you don't have the instant escape bomb thingy. Also, sometimes you may indirectly or directly need an enemy's aid to move forward because of the level design. The only major problem I have with the gameplay side of things is that sometimes your AI companions are just absolutely brain dead. What the fuck is he doing? Bro! Well, that's just sad. And I'm gonna be honest here, the thing about this game that is actually gonna wow you is the story. The story of this game had me gripped from the very first minute to the very last one. The voice acting is on point.
Amicia, there's some fire up there. Let's go. The torch.
the writing makes you give a shit about characters. Amicia's character development feels earned as you connect with her anger, her frustration, and her desperation the same way you connect with her fears. You witness a teenage girl who's emotionally destroyed by her first kill gradually grow desensitized to the act of murder and get accustomed to it. For most of the game, Hugo acts like how a child actually would, which is more rare in video games than you think.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Seeing this brother and sister relationship have its ups and downs but ultimately strengthen as they face these horrible situations together, caring for each other, is just special, man. That being said, I do feel like most of the other supporting cast is pretty one-dimensional, especially the human main villain. This motherfucker is Jim Carrey's Dr. Eggman turned into a serious character, and I mean that in a very negative way. Thankfully, you don't actually see a lot of him in the game for the most part, but I think the more prominent characters like Lucas should have been given more depth. A Plague Tale: Innocence is one of the best examples of a game making threats actually feel powerful. These rodents are the devil and you genuinely feel threatened by them. The kind of upbeat moments of relief become even more meaningful as you see these characters and you as a player being forced into doing absolutely horrible shit since there's no other way to move forward. Oh my god, I remember this.
Can use this.
This feels like the I know what I have to do but I don't know if I have the strength to do it meme. Sorry, little piggy.
No, Amicia, what are you doing?
Oh my god. Man, why am I laughing? This is so dark. The way this game utilizes its violence, its gore is actually brilliant. The gruesomeness is so utterly detailed here, it's actually ridiculous. But the thing is, it's in service to the story. The effects of war and unstoppable force and the people's fear of it is portrayed so masterfully, it literally made me speechless at points. Violence feels meaningful and actually sad at times as you're directly faced with its aftermath. There's very little censorship in this department, and if you've been around the channel for a while, you know how much I appreciate it when video games have the balls to not pull any punches. The plague-ridden setting here is just phenomenally realized and most definitely one of the most memorable settings I've ever experienced in a video game. And the music scoring it all is just the cherry on top of the cake. Holy shit, the soundtrack here is
So good.
Oliver D. Rivera crafted a soundtrack that can sound hopeful, sad, eerie, dangerous, and epic all at the same time while still feeling cohesive and consistent throughout the game. Now, I do have two big chungus problems with the game's story though. Firstly, many times the lip syncing and the facial animation is just god-awful.
Look!
You don't know what you're saying.
I do know we're getting killed. One by one.
That's it? That's the best you got?
It just takes away from some of the scenes, man. And secondly, in an attempt to constantly up the ante, too much goofy shit starts happening in the story for me to take it seriously towards the end. Like, look at this, man, and tell me if this shit ain't funny. That is literally a rat tornado. But in conclusion, A Plague Tale: Innocence is a game that when I started playing, I didn't want to put down. The fact that this is an indie game that was produced by only 40 people just goes to show what can be created when people actually give a shit about their art rather than making another trash, soulless product whose sole purpose is to extract money from people's pockets. It is such a surprisingly well-made sleeper hit that actually made me care about its characters, its world, and what happens next. And speaking of what happens next, I hope the developers fix and optimize A Plague Tale Requiem as soon as possible because I can't wait to see where these characters go next. A Plague Tale: Innocence is not a game that is gonna please everyone, but if you are willing to try something a little bit different, you should definitely consider checking it out.